There's not one guy, one person in the history of this program that's bigger than the program.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
What's up, and welcome into week 2 of the program roundup. I'm Patrick Hertzberger. Joined with me is Matt Gann, Mark Hall, Ryan Tyson. We are sponsored by our friends at the Fan Stop. We have an awesome show coming your way today. Week 2, college football. We're going to be covering all of the big games like Utah, Baylor, Miami, Texas A&M, CU, Nebraska, Texas versus Alabama, and much, much more. Opening thoughts on week 2. Ryan Tyson, give it to me, baby.
Texas looked great. I hate Texas A&M, so yay. And I still think Colorado's overrated.
All right, like it. Matt?
A lot closer of some games this week. I know we're going to touch on a couple, but a lot better matchups, a lot better road wins by a couple teams as well. So definitely just another exciting week of college football. Excited to touch on a couple of these games that we got on the list.
Yeah, it was an awesome week. I loved it a lot. Mark, could you tell us a bit about the sponsor of the show and your week 2 thoughts?
Oh my God, you know that I can. The show, as always, is brought to you by the Fan Stop. Get officially licensed tees, long sleeves, and hoodies delivered monthly with their College Shirt of the Month Club. They have approximately 50 schools in the deal, and these are sweet new designs to your month or to your door every month. Their packages start at $21.95 a month and go up from there based on, sort of the additions that you get as you go. The styles are great. The fabrics are great. Like I said, plans start at $21.95, and you can save 15% for your first 3 months with the code PGUYZ. That's PGUYZ. They've also started introducing officially licensed game day polos. And here's a fun little thing. Patrick, you're going to love this.
Yeah.
My mom had one of them this weekend.
Oh my gosh.
And I was able to feel the fabric on it, and it feels just like any other great dry fit game day polo you can find out there. It's officially licensed. It doesn't have the markup that you're going to get elsewhere. So go check that out too. And you can use our code PGUYZ for that as well. PGUYZ. And you save, I think, 10% on that,
yes,
not 15%. So I had a boo-boo on that last week. Want to clean that up. But guys, go learn more at thefanstop.com. They're sponsoring the show, and we love those guys. First week 1 thoughts. I was at the Oklahoma game last night, so I haven't caught up on every game, but the early ones were a lot of fun. I think that Utah, even without Cam Rising, Bryson Barnes is finding ways to get it done, and they're just grinding games out right now. I was impressed with that team. I was not as impressed with Colorado, but that's more of a Nebraska thing than anything else. So we can get into that.
Awesome, baby. Yeah, let's get into that Baylor-Utah game with our own insider, Sikkim T. Ryan Tyson, huge Baylor fan on the podcast. Baylor losing that game in a close one, 20-13. Utah really winning at the end of the game there. Ryan, what were your thoughts on the game?
I thought both teams looked horrible.
Dude, me too.
I thought it was a hideous game from the start. I thought that both backup quarterbacks, keep that in mind, were not good. I appreciate Mark coming in and saying like they made it work and they made it happen, and they did. But the Utah quarterback is not good either. Like both of them were just not great. Baylor had a couple interceptions that were some of the worst thrown balls I've seen so far this year. I do have a little bit of Baylor love in my household. And so, it's been a tough couple weeks in the Tyson McDonald household, with Baylor going 0-2. But overall, I thought it was just kind of an ugly game. I think Baylor kind of shot themselves in the foot toward the end of it. I'm not really high on either of these teams. I think Utah, I want to see what they look like with Cam Rising. I still think that team is very, very good at home. I think they're going to play some away games that are going to get them. I personally thought Baylor would win this game, but they did not. So I think this is more a reflection on Baylor than it is on Utah, in my opinion. And I'm interested to see how the rest of the Pac-12 shakes out for them. But overall, it was just an ugly game that ended ugly. So
Yeah, I was really excited about Utah's big win last week, and they did not look like the same team in Waco. Sawyer Robinson for Baylor, the quarterback, went 12 for 28, 218 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
So bad.
Really
so
not
bad.
good. And Bryson Barnes for Utah went 6 for 19, 71 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then Nate Johnson, the third string quarterback for Utah, 6 for 7, 82 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
Gross.
Zero
Gross.
receiving touchdowns. Shout out. Matt, what'd you think?
Yeah, this was a defensive battle, as one would call it. Baylor let this one slip through their fingers, I think, a little bit, having the late lead going into the fourth quarter, and Utah really playing QB by committee until Cam Rising can get back to them and obviously make them a team that they were last year. But Utah is really predicated on their defense. They showed that, obviously forcing a couple turnovers for Baylor. Kyle Whittingham, I think, is the head coach for Utah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Has always got their guys prepared, at least defensively, and they're going to have to continue to ride that defense until Cam Rising gets back. So I think Baylor, again, let this one slip. I think they were the better team overall. Again, that's not saying by much because both teams, I think, played pretty poorly. But Utah ends up getting another win for the Pac-12 as the Pac-12 continues to look pretty good overall.
Love it. Anything else on that game, guys? All right, let's talk about Deion Sanders and his CU Buffaloes winning 36-14 against Nebraska. Matt Rules, Nebraska. Shador Sanders, 31 for 42, 393 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. I watched the game. I loved it.
No pick.
No pick?
ESPN's not showing me a pick.
Oh, well, okay. Good to know. No pick then, but minus 30 rushing yards. That is something to note about Shador there.
In college football, sacks reduce your rushing yard total.
Right.
So that's probably a reflection of that.
Yeah, absolutely. The CU fans rolled out before the game, during the game, and then after the game, they stormed the field after beating Nebraska. I think it was we are back storming the field, but that fan base does like storming the field. Mark, thoughts on the game?
Like I said, I think it's more of a sign of how not far Nebraska is. You bring in a former 4-star quarterback like Jeff Sims and hope that somewhere like Georgia Tech just mismanaged him in his prior stop, and he can be a Band-Aid to the next generation for Matt Rule, but he can keep the offense going while he's there. Man, not this week and not last week. And I think he's learning that it's a little bit tougher in Nebraska than it was 30 years ago to be successful at Nebraska. On the Colorado side, I'm flipping all the way on this. I want them to be good.
Me too.
I want them to be really good. We're never going to be in the same conference as them because they're in the Pac-12 right now and they move to the Big 12 next season. And aren't they going to be such a fun little one of the teams in the Big 12 next year? And they do it a little differently. They do it a lot differently. But this guy has us calling him Coach Prime. That's ridiculous. And his son is the quarterback. None of it should be work. And their best player starts on both sides. None of this should be working. It is so much fun. I am in on the Buffs. I'm a big fan of what they're doing right now. And again, I don't know if they're good, but it's more fun if they are good. Matt, what do you think?
The earlier games, I was able to see quite a bit. The first half, if we go back to the box score, only 13-0 Nebraska, or 13-0 Colorado over Nebraska. And honestly, Nebraska's defense was playing really well, containing Sanders and that Colorado offense. It really wasn't until the second half where Sanders did most of his damage in the yards that he got. But Nebraska's defense, I think, saw a lot of tape last week. They played a lot of 8 people in zone, which I think gave Sanders quite a bit of trouble. And he's obviously able to figure out in the second half. But the more tape that comes out, from the last 2 weeks. I think teams are going to figure it out. Better teams, if you think about Oregon and UCLA and some of these better defenses in the Pac-12. So it'll be really interesting, some of the adjustments that once these teams get more tape on Saunders. But he is really unbelievable to watch. He's got that swag just like his dad. And obviously Travis Hunter only missing 9 snaps in the entirety of the game, which is incredible to do that back-to-back weeks. I don't know how much longer he can do it, if he can do it the entire season. I feel like they're going to have to manage him more, and I think he's going to be a better lockdown corner than receiver. Did have 3 catches for 73 yards, but this is the team that everyone's talking about in college football, and now they're getting College Game Day next week, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense since they're playing Colorado State. You think they would maybe save that for maybe Oregon the following week or USC, but the hype is surrounding this team, and for good measure. And let's continue to see it ride. I'd love to see what's going to happen, especially when they play better competition.
Yeah, I really want Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter to win the Heisman. I want it so bad. It'd be so fun. Ryan, what were your thoughts? Or Mark, sorry. Mark's good. All right, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm having fun with this Colorado team. I think they're just like, it's so like, this whole thing is so weird. It's just such a weird thing that we don't get very often. And that's what makes it fun. I still don't think they're very good. And maybe I'll be shown differently later. But my biggest takeaway from this game is how bad Nebraska is. Like, Nebraska is very bad. Like, maybe not on defense, especially like that first half that kind of Gan was mentioning. They have some, solid defensive players and they came in with a game plan. Their offense is just horrible. It's horrible. And Jeff Sims has played horrible in the first 2 games as a Nebraska Cornhusker. I don't really know what Matt Rule is doing. I'm not entirely sure. But it's not working, whatever it is. And my biggest takeaway was like, it was not, man, Colorado looks good. It was, man, how bad does Nebraska look? And like that, to me, until I can see Colorado play a better team in Oregon or a USC, like that's when we're really gonna know. But for now, I'm having a good time. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm laughing at all the post games that Coach Prime has, and like, hey, keep it up. Do I think that Travis Hunter or Sanders is gonna win the Heisman? No, I do not. But that is,
yeah, let's do that real fast.
Let's do it.
That's not happening. They're not going to win games like that. I mean, sure, Caleb Williams couldn't win the Pac-12 last year, but they won games like a conference winner. I don't know if that's going to happen for Colorado this year. That said, they got to be the front runners in the race as it stands in week 2, right?
I think it's them, and I think it's Caleb and Sanders.
I
think
it's
1-2, and then
some kind.
With a game we're about to talk about, I think Ewers is in there too. So
that's not a bad point.
Week 1, I think, but
yeah, he did. But it doesn't matter when you beat a team like Bama.
When you do the thing.
You do the thing.
That's true. I just want to say howdy to all of my friends in College Station. What is going on? Losing to Miami 48-33 as favorites in that game.
It's the Bag Bowl.
I mean, you thought you had the quarterback. You thought you had the wide receiver. You thought you could get into a shootout against Tyler Van Dyke. You couldn't. Connor Wegman, 31 for 53, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions against Tyler Van Dyke, the Miami quarterback, 21 for 30, 374 yards, and 5 tutties. He played lights out. Ryan, what are your thoughts on that game? And
I don't know. My initial thoughts are just like, how does this happen with the amount of talent that A&M has? But then I remember that it's Texas A&M, and I'm like, okay, that's how that happens. I think just all of it to me is just very, very comical. Like the fact that they have Jimbo in this $100 million buyout, and they have some of the top recruits in the country year after year because they are able to just shell out these massive NIL deals because they have more money than God down there in College Station. And it just doesn't work. It just hasn't worked, and it will continue to not work. Something there is just irrevocably broken, and it's like I can't quite figure out what it is, but I laugh every time that this happens. So like that's where I'm kind of at. Am I shocked that this happened? No, because it's A&M. This is what A&M does. They always lose a game like this. I mean, it happens, and then they'll turn around and they'll beat Bama. Like this is the inconsistency that like always plagues A&M, and it's why they will never get to the next level ever. I truly believe that until they fix whatever this is, and Jimbo is not the guy, and the fact that in order to get him out of that place they have to pay him $100 million is so funny. So those are my thoughts.
Matt, what are your thoughts?
Let's play a fun game here. I'm going to read you some stats from the game. I want you to tell me which team do you think this is. This team went 3 for 9 for third down efficiency. They did have a total of 450 yards, but only 77 of that was rushing. But they had 10 penalties for over 115 yards and 1 turnover. You think that's the winning or losing team? Which team do you guys think that is?
I guess that's Miami.
That's
I have a
rhetorical.
bad feeling it's Miami.
No, that's Miami, and they still won 48-33 in this game.
Man.
Now, I think the biggest difference was Miami did force a couple more turnovers than what they had, but 10 penalties were for 115 and only can rush for 77 rushing yards and still win by 15 points. When A&M was a favorite in this game with all their high-power recruits and skill set players and all that. That's pretty astonishing. That should be flipped based on the stats that I saw. A&M just continues to do this year in, year out. They'll get one big statement win, I'm sure, in the SEC somewhere, but still end up 500 or below like they usually do.
Mark?
The Texas A&M thing is so funny. They have more money than God. They have Jimbo. They thought this offseason, let's throw Bobby Petrino in the mix. And it just doesn't really ever come out to a winning product on the football field. They haven't been special on the field since Johnny Manziel. And there's more talent than half the teams in the country, more than half the teams in the country. They're always in the top 10 recruiting. They can always get guys in the door, but similar to the stateside friends in Austin, the problem has always been producing with that talent. And while it looks like the team in Austin might have flipped a switch and turned a corner here, A&M certainly hasn't done that. Miami, on the other hand, I don't know if this game means that they're good because of everything that Matt said. You get lucky on a kickoff return, go 98 yards for a touchdown. That's awesome. That's cool. It's good to have that kind of a playmaker returning kicks for you. But are we going to find towards the end of the season that maybe a early win against Texas A&M isn't as special as it might look on the resume right now? That's sort of where my brain lands when I'm thinking about this.
I think it's time for all the Texas A&M Aggies to wake up, have a cup of coffee, a strong cup of coffee, look themselves in the mirror, and tell themselves that Jimbo Fisher is no longer the guy. You've got to walk away from him.
It's so funny to me that they probably know that, but they have to pay him so much money
A lot.
in order to do that. It's so funny. Oh my
You would
God.
think that's an alumni base that would be down to crowdfund this thing and
Probably.
get a buyout together.
Oh my God.
I mean, LSU did it with Ed, and they did the right thing. I mean, maybe, well, still, but I think leaving and firing Ed was the right thing.
Moving on from Coach O was the right move.
Yeah. All right. Anything on that before we move into the biggest game, Texas against Alabama? All right. Well, before we do, remember our promo code is PGUYZ, Guyz. Sponsored by the FanStop. One more time. Go to thefanstop.com, 15% off. Use that promo code Guyz. All right. Texas against Bama. Is Texas back? Everyone, let's answer that first. Is Texas back? Ryan.
Yes, unfortunately.
Matt.
I hate to agree, but I think they're on their way. I don't want to say they're all the way back.
Mark.
But this is a good solidified win.
No.
Love it.
Ooh, we love content.
All right. Mark, why is Texas not back? Tell me.
Okay. Why are we? This reasoning is mostly around an Alabama team with a running back playing quarterback that doesn't really have an offense ready to go, clearly doesn't have a defense. They give up 34 points at home to a Big 12 challenger coming in. Yeah, Texas has athletes. Texas always has athletes. They always have a good-looking win, multiple good-looking wins. Honestly, they're a talented team. They have good players. I'm going to need to see more than 2 games, even if one was as impressive as this. And this is an impressive win before I call this team back. Steve Sarkisian is still the coach. That dude that dated the monkey-owning stripper is still on staff. There is so much going on at the University of Texas, and I'm just not willing to go there yet. So let me flip it. Matt, Ryan, whoever wants to go first, explain why Texas is back. Go Longhorns, right?
I don't think you can go into a place like Tuscaloosa and beat a Nick Saban led team like they did and not say that they're back. Like that is the most impressive win that they have had in 12 years, probably. Somewhere around there. I mean, they beat us 49-0 last year, but that was in the Sugar Bowl, and it was a neutral site field. It's not going to probably one of the hardest places to play in college football, and beating them like pretty substantially. Like I watched most of that game. Like they were the much better team on both sides of the ball. And that to me, I have to give them their flowers as much as I hate it. This is the closest that they have been, quote unquote, back since they went to the national championship in 2009. I think it was 2009, 2010, around there, sometime around there. So like, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, like, is it, again, we're so early in the season that it's kind of one of those hard things that's like, is it that Texas is really good? Is it that Alabama's not great this year? You know, we kind of had the same thoughts around like Colorado and Nebraska. Like which way, we're always going to have those questions and it will shake out eventually. But if you're asking me right now in this moment, are they back? I'm going to say yes. And I hate it. But like, I'm going to say yes.
I love that you're being unbiased. Matthew.
So I'm in Mark's vein of thought. I said they're on the way back. I don't think they're there because I need to see, like Mark said, more than 2 weeks. I'm not going to take any credit away from what Texas did last night because they looked better on all 3 levels the entirety of the game. And this was really Quinn Ewers' coming out game. I think we saw flashes of the potential he had last year, but this is a statement win in one of the hardest environments against one of the best coaches in the league. And we know going into this game, having College Game Day, the hype around it, everyone thought Alabama was going to absolutely wash this Texas Longhorn team. They were favorites by about a touchdown and a half with a little bit of the unknowns. But Quinn Ewers went 24-38, 349, 3 touchdowns. And this was with a running game that only produced 2.8 yards per carry. Quinn put it on his back yesterday and really showed why he's the number 1 quarterback over Arch Manning and will continue to be the number 1 quarterback for the rest of the year. The defense had 5 total sacks, 2 interceptions, and 9 tackles for losses. That's pretty unheard of for an Alabama team, regardless of who's in there with the talent they bring in every single year. This is a really, really good win for Texas. I'm really worried about, I think we said on previous pods that Texas will probably end up beating us the way that they're playing now. I do want to see more just consistency wise, but this is a great win for Texas and obviously them coming into the SEC next year.
Quick thing. My preseason Big 12 newcomer of the year, A.D. Mitchell, with 2 touchdowns in the fourth
Great game
quarter
from him.
to seal that game for the Texas Longhorns. Super athlete
Mhm.
that clearly Quinn Ewers is building up a rapport with.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's talk about Alabama too. Jalen Milroy, quarterback, went 14 for
Milrow.
27, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. This Alabama team just doesn't have it either. Then that was part of Texas winning here.
I genuinely feel like I don't feel bad for them, but like going from Bryce Young to what we saw last night is tough. Like it's it's really, really hard. I know that Jalen Milrow gave his he gave his absolute best. That is not the caliber of Alabama quarterback that we are used to. Like it's frankly not. He missed people. He had flashes of like, oh, that's an incredible throw. And then he would completely miss someone the next thing. It was inconsistent. And we do not see Alabama inconsistent. That is one thing we don't usually see. So it was a different team. And I think going back to what Marcus said, what a lot of people have said, we don't know exactly what this Alabama team is going to shake out to be at the end of this year. And I'm sure they're going to be fine. They have a ton of talent, but that offensive performance very specifically, I think is more on Alabama than it is on the Texas defense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, I think the Texas offense under Quinn was actually pretty spectacular against a Alabama defense that has a lot of talent. So Quinn made some throws that I was like, I need Dylan Gabriel making these throws, and he wasn't last night. So I think that
Hey man, we already did that pod.
I know we already did that pod, but I want to give them credit for this win. But at the same time, yes, there are questions about Alabama, especially on the offensive side, in my opinion.
Anything else on that game or any other game of the weekend that you guys thought was interesting and wanted to touch on before we get to our MVPs of the week?
Yeah, I think another great late night game was the Oregon Texas Tech game. Texas Tech coming back from that loss and overtime to Wyoming, going to be backed up into a corner, obviously playing a top 15 team, possibly Heisman candidate Bo Nix. Oregon coming in, looking really good last week, and obviously being one of the favorites for the Pac-12. Texas Tech looked really good, and their quarterback, Tyler Show, I think if I'm saying that correctly, he is really good. He played pretty incredible last night, getting his box score pulled up here, 24 for 38, 282, 3 touchdowns, also had 3 picks, but had 23 rushes for 100 yards and a touchdown. Really was trying to will his team to victory, but really what shut the game was that last interception that Oregon returned for a touchdown.
It was so bad.
Really bad on him, but one mistake really cost them the game as they were going for the game-winning drive. But this is a good road victory for Oregon going into Texas Tech on the road, a pretty hostile environment, and coming out with a win against what some people thought was going to be a really, really good Texas Tech team. And I think they're still going to be, just not obviously starting the year off strong, but that was a really good late night game as well.
Real fast too, one fun little note. Last week we commented on how the future dying on the way to the graveyard Pac-12 is performing pretty well. Well, just yesterday, Wisconsin, ranked number 19 in the country, goes into Washington State and gets beat by 9 points, 31-22. Tanner Mordecai can't get it done. Only gets 1 touchdown. Pac-12, man. It's fun this year.
It is. It is fun. Ryan, anything else before we jump to the MVPs? All right, Mark.
Don't think so.
No. All right, Mark. Tell us about our sponsor one more time before we jump into the MVPs.
Oh my God. You know that we're sponsored by thefanstop.com. You are absolutely going to want to go online, get their officially licensed tees, long sleeves, and hoodies delivered monthly through their college shirt of the month fan club, something like that. I got to get the exact phraseology right, but they're hooked up with like 50 something schools. All of their stuff is super stylish. It's super comfortable. You get a different design every month delivered straight to your doorstep. Plans start at $21.95 and go up a couple dollars, a few bucks if you want to add the more premium options to it. That's every month. You get a t-shirt sent to your door. You can save 15% on your first 3 months with our code PGUYZ. If you go sign up today, PGUYZ, you can do the same thing with their officially licensed game day polos. I saw one of these this weekend. It looks great. It feels great. That honestly, I'm going to be getting some, and you should too with our code PGUYZ, PGUYZ, to save 10% on the polos. That's 15 on the t-shirt monthly subscription, 10% on the polos with code PGUYZ, PGUYZ. Go get after it. Thefanstop.com. That's our sponsor. We love those guys.
Love it, baby. All right, my MVP of the week is JJ McCarthy. He went 22 for 25, 278 yards and 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Michigan quarterback looks the part. Man, they look scary. They look good. This Michigan team, I think they could win the Big Ten. That's what I've been saying this whole time. So, Ryan, what's your MVP?
It pains me to say this, but I think it's Quinn Ewers. No one has improved their stock this past week. No one has improved their stock this past week like he has. And yeah, we had like a whole conversation around, is Texas back? And a lot of that is because of him. And I know a lot of people had doubts coming in, is Manning going to come in and take that job? And I think he made a statement last night to say, no, he's not. And I'm here. So I got to give it to him, even though it hurts me. But
all right. Love it. Matt?
Yep, I'm going another quarterback, Miami, Tyler Van Dyke. We talked on it earlier, 21 for 30, 374, and 5 tutties, no turnovers, a 94 QBR. Probably had the best game of the week over a top 25 team in the Texas A&M Aggies. So Tyler Van Dyke, hopefully they can continue that in the ACC when they get to play Clemson, some of those other big schools.
Mark, round us out.
Yeah, baby. I'm going to go with Ohio State receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. in a cross-state matchup against Youngstown State. The Penguins. We got to see if we can get hooked up with some Penguins merch somehow. Marvin Harrison Jr. goes 7 catches for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a long reception of 71 yards. That is the kind of game that you expect to see from him. He would be the number 1 pick in the draft, if not for generational quarterbacks like Caleb Williams. And he looked the part against the Penguins on Saturday. That's going to be my week 2 MVP, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr.
Love it. That was week 2 of the program roundup. Go to thefanstop.com. Go join their Shirt of the Month club. Go buy your polo. Thank you so much for tuning in. Mark, take us out.
Keep pushing it, baby.
2